Well, Bill, you said the other day, Russia is furious with us for supposedly causing this financial meltdown, which is global, which has affected them something terrible. You even suggested that Russia might have thoughts of retaliating against America. How would you see that playing out?
That's an extreme example, Jan, but at the same time, when Russia is meeting with Cuban officials, when we're talking about the president of Russia, Medvedev, having gone to Cuba last fall and also going to Venezuela to meet with Chavez, in the last couple of weeks, both Cuba and Venezuela have made military facilities available to Russian bombers. The fact that Russia is not happy about our potential missile defense system in their proximity, and also the fact that Putin is furious, the fact that their stock market's lost over 72% of its market capitalization, and blames us for the world economic crisis. How would they retaliate? Well, military would be one way, and not only over there, but possibly even here. I don't know what would actually make the big bear mad, Jan, but I know they aren't happy with us right now. And just some of these things they've done in Cuba and Venezuela are somewhat problematic.
Right. Well, while we still have time, and let's see, we'll throw out the email one more time, jan@uttradio.com. But before time gets away, Bill Koenig, by the way, you're listening to Understanding the Times. Look up Bill at watch.org on the web. And we have Prime Minister, soon to be, Benjamin Netanyahu, coming into office within Israel. Now, you think he might have the strength and the courage to go against Iran?
He has been so outspoken.
Yes, he has.
About the risks that Israel faces with Iran. He has said that we have to plan to go about it ourselves. He said that for over the last 2 years in America and around the world. He and Ehud Barak are developing a closer and closer relationship. They do see eye to eye on the situation, the threats of Iran. Moshe Ayalon, former director of the IDF, is also very concerned about Iran. He's been very articulate and outspoken about it. He's a no BS kind of guy. He tells it like it is. Also, Dori Gold, who's one of former Israeli ambassador to the UN, is one of Netanyahu's key advisors. And we had a meeting with Gold in October, and he was talking about the great concern and threat of Iran. And he said that by the end of this year, or early next year, something is going to have to be done with the Iranian threat. At this point, with the new administration here in Washington, they're going to try the diplomatic route, but I don't see it working. And obviously, at some point, Netanyahu's going to have to be the one that pulls the trigger because it's a very serious threat to a very tiny, small Middle Eastern country, and Israel's got to do something.
Well, do you have any kind of in your mind, any kind of a timetable? Are we thinking a year from now, or?
Well, I thought what Dori Gold said to us personally in October, and I heard him on the 700 Club in September say the same thing, that Gold really felt, and he's a straight shooting guy, that something has to be done this year, early next year, Jan, unless
that's what I thought too.
Iran slows down. So I don't know what that means at this point, but they're getting to the point of no return if they haven't already crossed it. And so eventually something's going to have to be done.
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen. I mean, if they do this, and of course there are multiple reactors that they would have to take out, unlike in 1981 in Iraq, they took out just the one, and the world scorned them for having taken out one of those reactors in Iraq. If she takes out the reactors in Iran, one or more, or 10 or 20, I think there are dozens of them, the world again will chastise her and demonize her for doing the world a favor.
Well, what's interesting about that, Jan, a couple things. One is I'm hearing more and more diplomatic people are starting to say, well, what is the risk of having Iran go have nuclear weapons? They're beginning to almost talk themselves out of concern about a risk. Some of the more moderates say, well, big deal. So they have it. You know, they're only going to have a small amount, and they'd be crazy to use it because if they did use it, it would be very costly. But again, we know Iran has their eyes in Israel, so that's very significant. The other thing, too, is, like you said, this is a complicated situation. These things are buried. No one knows where they are exactly.
Yeah, they're underground.
Or the level of advancement that they have achieved at this point in time. So that's very risky. The other thing is I've talked to some of the moderates from Iran who really do not like the government in place. But they told me that the 85% would come alongside the 15% if the U.S. or Israel attacked Iran. So you see the problems of the attack, too, with the rest of the Iranian people. They're considered moderate people.
Okay, let's real quickly hit on one more troubled spot as we're trying to go around the world in 120 minutes. And that is, we haven't made real good progress, but we're trying to do the best we can because it's a big world out there. The right. Powder keg within Afghanistan/Pakistan. We've got Pakistan, who's almost becoming an al-Qaeda enclave, and they've got nuclear weapons by the gazillion. And how do you see this playing out, particularly under the Obama administration here, with particularly the administration's soft take on anything Islamic?
Well, there's a lot of discussion right now on what's the best way to handle it. John McCain and a few of the members of the Senate believe send more troops in, let's beef this up, let's get aggressive, let's win this war. But what's interesting, a guy by the name of David Kilcullen, who advised Petraeus, he's an Australian counterinsurgency expert, says that there's really a four-stage model that you have to acknowledge in these situations. He said, first of all, al-Qaeda and the Taliban, they will infect an area. And then eventually they will start creating some problems to the point they will mount attacks which will provoke an American response. And then when the Americans respond, then people that aren't necessarily anti-American become anti-American, and then you've got your war started. And this is a modus operandi that was in Iraq, and this is he says you have to be very careful. He says at this point you have to take care of your centralized or your centralized problems. Don't bring too many troops in to provoke it. Manage it. But he says you also have the risk if you leave, then you've been defeated. So you have to be very wise how you handle these. And he also says you need to develop some relationships with some of the factions in these areas, which Petraeus was able to do so effectively. They use special forces and develop relations with the tribal people in these areas, and that's one of the reasons they were so effective.
Okay, but I want to get to Pakistan here, because Pakistan is a powder keg.
Well, Pakistan's a big problem. See, what happened is Musharraf, when he was, we gave him billions of dollars. But see, Musharraf was a military guy. Musharraf basically played two ends. One, he had a good relationship with the Bush administration. At the other end, he had a workable relationship with the terrorist organizations. He never actually opposed them. They kind of coexisted. But Rice and Bush wanted democracy. They made Musharraf allow Bhutto to come in. She was assassinated. Musharraf's out of power. Bhutto's husband's in power. He's not trusted. So it's very problematic. And the great concern right now is the Taliban and al-Qaeda are gaining much, much more strength up in the northern part of Pakistan where the 70 nuclear weapons are. And it is a mess.
Yeah.
You'll see one day good news, next day bad news. Next day good news, next day bad news. Very problematic, Jan. I don't think anybody really knows how to handle it.
Well, my question is, and we don't know, I guess, and that would be how the current administration, the Obama administration, is going to be dealing with Pakistan, because it is such a powder keg with nuclear weapons proliferating within Pakistan.